this. Texas killing it in recruiting. So obviously I got my thoughts on Dylan Berryman, Corin Brown. We haven't talked about the kicker yet. I did not make a video about him, so we will get into that. But I'm going to let you speak on the two guys that committed to Texas first. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I'll start with Berryman because I think he is he played a little bit of like the will he won't he, but like he wasn't going to go to Purdue. Let's just be real about this.
Yeah.
And so for him to come in to Texas, like we said, Texas is starting to stockpile talent in the trenches. This is a guy who's a pretty ready-made nose tackle, right? He comes in 6'2", 6'3", 210, or sorry, 310, like 320-ish, probably coming into campus. When he gets, I'm always curious to see what these guys' weights do when they get into the right nutrition program and into the right strength program. I think, he might hover right at that 315, 320, but put on better weight maybe than he has in high school just because they don't have the facilities. Another thing I love about this, going into Louisiana, getting a kid from Louisiana. Again, it's hard to pull a kid out of Louisiana and then pull them past Texas A&M is huge for Texas, huge for what Kenny Baker's trying to do. Top 100 kid, right? He is really going to come in, I think, make some waves pretty early for Texas. And again, starts the summer recruiting off with a really big name commitment. That goes a long way for what Texas is trying to do this summer.
100%. I agree with that. I think he plays pretty early for Texas. He's got that ready-made body. A lot like the first picture I saw of Josiah Sharma. I think Josiah Sharma is probably going to play a little bit more than your casual fan thinks he's going to play this year, just because of the body type. Like that guy's ready to play football. Justice Terry, before he got sick, was ready to play football body type-wise. I think Dylan Berryman is 100% that guy when he steps onto campus next year.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to see him develop. Again, I always say this is my thing. Like I'm curious to see what these guys' bodies, because if you look at some of the cats that are on campus now that are, these early enrollees, they are transforming and they're going to be incredible to watch on campus. You mentioned Cohen Brown as well. This is one of those ones where, like, I always say, like, don't look at the stars, watch the tape and look at the offers, right? 6 foot 190, very like typical what Sark is looking for at a wide receiver. I think the biggest thing that is like the big green flag for me is like you flipped him from Lincoln Riley, right? A Lincoln Riley wide receiver. Say what you want about his abilities and what he's done at USC. The guy has had a really pretty good track record of evaluating wide receiver talent. And so, a month ago, he decommits from USC. This weekend he commits to Texas. And so that's a big deal for us. He's a track kid, long strider, really able to use that long stride to create space. He's not going to be your short burst quickness like we see with some of those guys on campus now, but a very long strider, long speed, 100, 200 meter guy in track. So like really able, that 200 speed, again, going to do a lot for Texas. Ability to high point the ball. I think he is probably a kid who will get some additional looks now that Texas is in his corner, and probably will see his star rise a little bit and contribute to all the burnt orange media conspiracy talks. But again, there's a reason why guys like Lincoln Riley wanted him on their squads. And so Texas able to grab that and land that is going to be huge.
No, we are on the complete same page here. When I made the video about as soon as he committed to Texas and I saw 515 nationally, I didn't understand it. I think he's more of around the 350 nationally is I think where he ends up ranked, because this guy's way too talented. He had 54 catches for 1,084 yards and 20 yards per catch last year. That's a very, very productive season. And Jerry Hamilton of On Texas said something very interesting, and I hate that teams do this. I do not understand it. I will never understand it. People wanted to see whether the track time verified his tape. I hate that. I absolutely despise that. What I see with my eyes is what I would trust, because that's how like guys go to TCU and you wonder, damn, why didn't Texas recruit that? Well, it's because, his track time didn't verify his tape. Well, if his tape's freaking good, offer the kid. I don't really care about cool. It's cool to have track time and the tape. But if the tape says, you know what, this guy's really effing good, then guess what? I'm just going to be like, hey, let's throw him an offer and see what happens. That is why Gary Patterson was so successful at TCU. He watched the tape and saw, why aren't people offering this guy? Oh, well, his numbers and measurables aren't that good. Well, they turn out to be guys that would go there, kill it, make it to the NFL and play pretty well in the NFL too. So I don't understand why teams still do that. It's cool and all to have both, but if I'm choosing between the two, I'm choosing tape all day, every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Jonathan Brooks, right? A guy who was not that highly recruited, but then Texas former running back coach saw his tape and extended an offer, right? You look at the tape, you see how a guy plays, you're like, yep, he's got what we need. And then it turns out to be, again, Brooks was an incredible running back for Texas in that 1 year before he got hurt. So, like, there is something to be said about, like, these numbers can be juiced, right? They're judged by the players, the heights, the measurables, and all of that. But, like, what you see on tape is what you see on tape. But when I watched his tape, the long stride, he's got two strides every 5 yards. The guy is just eating up turf. Like, he's a very long strider. I think part of the issue is that he doesn't look like he's moving that fast because he's such a long strider. He's got such long legs that it's like, oh, the kid's kind of jogging. Like, oh no, he's outrunning these people with good pursuit angles on him. It's like, at some point you got to trust your eyes and trust the tape and trust what you're seeing. But I think he's a kid. Again, I look at the tape, look at the offers. He's got all the right offers. He's got all the right things on tape. I loved watching it. So I'm excited for Texas to land this kid and really, really add a player that I think is going to become one of those high flip candidates that people are going to be clamoring after late in the cycle.
And also, it tells me a lot that he also, like, touched the ball, like, running back wise as well. That means, hey, this guy's a really good athlete. Let's just get the ball in his hands. That fits obviously very well in Sark's scheme. He just wanted to get his athletes in space with the football. So that's another check. I really like him. I think he's going to be a really good player for Texas. Again, I don't think he's a guy that plays year one, but I think year two, you hear about him a lot when he does come to the University of Texas. Let's hit on that kicker, Jake Collette. What do you think about him? I know he kicked, I think his high in high school is like 56 yards, and I think he's ranked the #1 kicker according to 247.
Yeah, so he's you look at like the 247, he's got him at a 4-star or a 3-star, right? Cole's Professional Services is one that ranks kickers, and they've got him as a 5-star kicker, 4.5-star punter, which is weird. Didn't know we're doing half stars, but he's got a 50-yarder on tape in the fog, which was weird. Like, you couldn't really tell, but it's a 50-yarder. Hits for both hashes. As a place kicker, he puts it out of the back of the end zone. So I think he's got opportunities to be versatile for Texas. But a kid who's hitting 50 plus in high school, and it's verified, right? Like, they've got tape on him doing it, so it's great. I hope Texas gets to a point where we're not like hoping the next freshman to come in on scholarship is the one to stem the tide of weirdness that Texas has. But I think he's got the capabilities and abilities. I think Jeff Banks has found what he wants in a kicker. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We said that about previous kickers, but having this kid in the bank, having this kid locked up as, again, somebody who's got verified 50 plus yarders, hitting from both hashes, 30, 40, 50 yards. I think it's going to be great to have.
No, I do too. And I think it tells you a lot that, honestly, we're giving this guy a scholarship in this day and age. You don't even see that much anymore. But then also, they got this locked up pretty quickly. Like, I think they saw what happened last year and said, hey, this cost us an SEC championship. We had to make a move going into a semifinal of a playoff game. That shouldn't be happening here. And I think Sark said, enough is enough. Let's actually put the work in that is needed here at the kicker position that we do everywhere else along the roster. So I'm excited to have him, hopefully 6th in the class. It's going to be interesting if he is just purely a kicker at the University of Texas. I know Justin Tucker did kick and punt for the University of Texas for a little bit of time. So that's going to be interesting to me, what they decide to do there. But I'm just glad we have a decent kicker in the pipeline. Hopefully he pans out.
Yeah, again, he's a guy who's done all three, kick, punt, and do kickoff. So I'm curious where he lands in Texas. Obviously, the field goals is what Texas needs the most. But a guy who can do all three, or a guy who can even do 2 of the 3, really allows, especially with the way that scholarships and roster numbers are going to be having to be massaged in the near future, something to obviously keep an eye on.
100%. Now, let's talk about this as well. Felix Ojo cancels his visit to Oklahoma today. He visited Michigan last week. What do you think this means for Texas and Felix Ojo moving forward? He is visiting this week, the 13th.
Yeah, so I think it's very clearly that it's down to Michigan and Texas, right? Obviously, if you cancel your visit to one of your finalists, then you're probably not going to make it there. There is, in the Michigan circles, there's a lot of excitement that maybe Michigan was able to lock it down this weekend. Ojo's been, the tea leaves have looked Texas for a very long time. So I'm biased. Obviously, I'm wearing a burnt orange shirt. I've got my diploma right behind me on the live stream. But I really think this might be a case where like Michigan had it shot, didn't really hit the shot. And so I think, Texas really is, you get out to see another campus after he's been to Texas a couple of times. You get out to another campus, you see it, and you're like, oh, I know where home is. And so, that's my belief on this, that he gets out to Michigan, maybe doesn't quite have the experience that he wants there, realizes that, he's looking for what Texas already has to offer. So hopefully that's the read on it. I think Texas, he's a must-land kid for Texas. It's hard to say that a coach that's been as successful as Kyle Flood has a must-land kid, but when you have a top 5, recruit in your backyard, and there are at your position, obviously that's a guy that you have to land. So, that's my biased read on it. I don't have any sources, but that's what it feels like to me reading the tea leaves.
No, I agree. And anyone that doesn't know who Felix Ojo is, 6'6", 275 pounds, according to 247 composite, number 2 offensive tackle, number 7 player overall in the class. So wherever you go, he's going to be a top 10 player in the class, and number 1 or number 2 offensive tackle. So really big deal. Texas needs to land, and we've talked about this. Him and John Turntine, to me, are must-gets in this class, and it makes a hell of an offensive line class, and one that you could argue is just as good as that 2022 class. So
yep.
I agree. I think it either means he really loved the Michigan and he's going to give Texas one more chance. And if he doesn't like it as much, then he's going to go to Michigan, or he saw Michigan. He's like, you know what? Texas is home. When I get there this weekend, I'm going to commit and make this thing a done deal. I do think he ends up at Texas. If I had to put a percentage on it, I think it's 75-25 right now. And that I would say he ends up at Texas. I think all signs have been pointing there for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's anybody that's sourcing it. I'm not sourced. I don't have sources, but folks that I trust their reads on it, have that similar read. And I think that's what the tea leaves. I've been following recruiting for probably a painfully long time. If the gray hairs in my chin have any indicator of how long I've been doing this, that's just what makes sense based on the timing and based on everything that we've seen. And before we move on, we gotta talk. Our friend David in the chat has got a lot of great analysis for us on the wide receiver recruiting. I want to hit on that before we move on.
Yeah, this one right here. He says DeAndre Moore, 2023, Parker Livingston, 2024, Dalen McCutcheon, 2025, and Cohen Brown, 2026. He talks about over the past 4 recruiting classes, including 2026, Texas seems to have at least one wide receiver that redshirts, but his second year could be a big difference maker. And I agree with that. I actually think Dalen McCutcheon is going to play a lot this year. Like if you listen to all the spring news out of spring camp, it was him getting the majority of like slot reps, honestly, when DeAndre Moore was out. And that kind of surprised both you and I, Gerald, because we both thought Jamie French or Khalil Lockett would get more playing time than Dalen McCutcheon. But I honestly think Dalen McCutcheon is going to get more playing time this year than both of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, McCutcheon got on campus and proved what he needed to do, right? He got his body right. He got in there. This is one of those, we've talked about it before. Texas has a ton of talent to pull from. We don't know what any of it is going to do when the lights are on Saturdays, right? So I think, Texas has an opportunity, and it looks like the Texas staff has, like David pointed out, a pretty solidified plan where you land an elite cat. Texas has a 5-star already in the class. It's probably going to play wide receiver. Again, a little bit of a different mold than what Texas is normally looking at, but a guy who's going to come in and see the field early. And then you have a kid that, like we mentioned, Cohen Brown, a fast kid, 10-6, 100. David put it out in the chat. I had that in my notes, David. I promise you, I had it in my notes as well. But like he's a kid who has that long speed for Texas that can really, be a guy that takes the top off of defense. You put him in one-on-one on the outside, and he really creates some space for all the other things Texas likes to do. So he's a guy who's going to have a lot of work in Austin in the future.
100%. And I completely agree with this comment, considering that Texas did not get Michael Fasusi in the 25 class, even though they did get Nick Brooks. I think Texas absolutely needs to get both Felix Ojo and John Turntine. And I don't think it's just because of that. It's because they're in your state. When you have these type of guys in your state, you have to lock them down and get them to the University of Texas. But I agree with that because to me, like I said, the 2022 class turned this thing around. If you don't land another class like that soon, because I'm going to be honest, the recruiting classes of the offensive line the past couple of years they've been good, but they haven't been great. And this to me is kind of like a reload class for that to get that offensive line cycle going again. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and I think you're looking at probably 4 or 5 guys on that side of the ball. I think the way that the numbers are looking and the way that Texas is positioned with a lot of these kids. You're probably going to see 4 or 5 guys in this class. Hopefully, Ojo and Turntine are the top 1 and 2, right, in that group. This is really, like you said, going to look like the 2022 class. I think on both sides of the line, right? 2022, more like half of the class was offensive and defensive linemen, and I think you're going to see something similar with the way Texas, again, is attacking those positions. The offensive line, the defensive line. Texas already has 2 defensive linemen in the class. They've got 4 total linemen, 2 on the offensive side, 2 on the defensive side. They've got Ojo visiting this weekend. They've got Turntine visiting next weekend. Got a whole long list of cats that are going to visit, and hopefully a lot of them commit to Texas. But I think we're looking at another class where you have, a 17, 20 number, and like almost half, if not almost half of those guys are in the trenches.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's what's going to end up happening because you already have everything else kind of plugged up. Like, we don't need wide receivers. We have a plenty of wide receivers, definitely plenty of tight ends now. Like, they're young and unproven, but we got plenty of them.
Yeah.
Running backs, pretty good there. It's really offensive and defensive linemen because cornerbacks, we've done a fantastic job of recruiting. Safeties, we've done a fantastic job of recruiting. It really is just offensive lineman, defensive lineman, maybe sprinkling a linebacker, but overall we've done a really good job recruiting and getting everything, filled up in the pipeline.
Absolutely.